Claudia's Pizza. Welcome to What's New. Tonight we have some lovely guests. We have some beautiful guests. Lean Hansen is here, Iris Vincent, I'm Mary Ann Roth, and Iris will introduce you to everyone.
Okay.
Take over, kiddo.
Sitting down in the chair past Darlene, everybody probably knows Darlene, is Allie Kavanaugh. Darlene, she has the black polka dot, and Darlene Klein is the purple Alzheimer's, and Diane Weber is in the white, and Adele Uding is in the pink, and Susie Johnson is in the burgundy. So who wants to talk first? We've got a lot of interesting things, so.
Yes.
Anybody have to,
I'll get it over with.
I was going to say, anybody have to get out
Oh, all right. Well, go ahead.
Anybody have any other appointments or anything?
I am Darlene Klein, and I am a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association. I've got just a short little synopsis that I want to give you, the things that are going on with Alzheimer's, and it's things that you may know, but if you don't, it's kind of interesting facts. Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death in our nation. Every 65 seconds, someone develops the disease, and 5.8 million are living with Alzheimer's or dementia. Many dementias are progressive, meaning that the symptoms are slow, they develop slowly, and they gradually get worse. As the disease progresses, the brain tissues shrink, part of the brain enlarges, the cells disintegrate, and memory declines. Language, behavior, bodily functions also decline along with memory until death, which is usually 8 to 10 years after diagnosis. If you know someone or your loved one is experiencing any memory difficulties or other changes in thinking, do something quick. Don't ignore them. See a doctor soon to determine the cause. Professional evaluation may detect a treatable condition, and even if the symptoms of Alzheimer's is there, a diagnosis along with the person to pursue available treatment and a better quality of life. The Alzheimer's Association is the leading voluntary health organization for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. Their vision is to have a world without Alzheimer's, and they are waiting for that first Alzheimer's survivor, which will be monumental. Alzheimer's and dementia will cost the nation approximately $290 billion. And that is why I am so adamant about our fundraising events, and that's why I'm here tonight, to enlighten and inform you of our upcoming events. A week from this Friday, May 3rd, we will be having our fundraiser, and it is fun. It's the annual mouse races. They're going to be held at the American Legion Hall in St. Genevieve. The doors open at 6. We will be serving pulled pork sandwiches, baked beans, coleslaw, dessert, a cash bar. The races will start at 7. There is a roulette table. Well, there's 7 races. There's a roulette table. There's Plinko. There's Chug-a-Lug, and just a lot of fun games. So it's a really fun night. We will have a silent auction, and it'll last probably till about 9:30. After that, we've got a whole summer stock full of different events that we've got coming up. We're overloaded. We have got a new law firm in town. It's the law firm of Breeze, Westhoff, Newton, and Elpers. And as their grand opening, they are going to have a Scooter Burger event, and those proceeds are also going to go to Alzheimer's. We have some wonderful business places in St. Genevieve that are so generous that we should really be proud of them. We're having a second one on the parking lot of the Point. That date has not been set yet, but there will be flyers around town. It'll be on the community calendar, and we'll let you know. June the 15th, the Eagles will be having a barbecue for us also. I have no location yet for that, but you'll know. June the 18th, the Audubon is having community night for Alzheimer's. And on August the 24th, which is our big Scooter Burger event on the American Legion lawn, and that's always a fun event. So we've got a lot going on, and we would appreciate as many people to participate in all our events as we can, because we're trying to break our record. As of now, in 4 years, we have raised $32,573. We're trying to at least go over 40,000, and I know we will. I'm not worried about that at all, but we want to see what we can do. We are also having a raffle. We'll be selling raffle chances all over town, and we've got a handmade and hand quilted queen-size quilt. We have a Charles Reinhardt painting. We have 4 excellent tickets to the Cardinal game on September the 18th, and maybe by that time we'll know how they're playing. We have a walnut jewelry armoire and a gas fire pit that we're going to be having on our auction. So look for us in the grocery stores, and at all these events we'll be selling. I'm done.
Is there a mission for this?
Pardon me?
Is there a mission for this?
Yeah. Oh, the admission for the mouse races is $25. That includes your dinner. There is a cash bar, but you're going to have a lot of fun. It's a fun evening, and it goes for a good cause. So I hope you'll all attend. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have some?
I was going to ask her something, but I forgot what it was. First sign of Alzheimer's.
Make that call. Okay.
That's good.
Go ahead. I'm going to stay for the rest.
And if you want to say something while somebody's talking, just let me know, and it's fine.
This is a friendly communication.
We have a kitchen table gathering.
Oh, goody.
But we can't be that loud.
I was just thinking, we are here, Adele, Susie, and I, Diane Weber, to talk about Serenity Hospice Care and hospice in general, because so many people are just scared out of their boots when they hear the word hospice. And yeah, I was telling Adele before, I kind of equate it to if you had a broken leg and the doctor said, now I think you would benefit from using crutches or a wheelchair. And you say, oh no, I'll be fine on my own. Well, hospice is like the crutches or the wheelchair to help you through this difficult time. We didn't cause, as hospice, the difficult time, but we want to support you through it. And like Darlene was talking about, the Alzheimer's and how there are so many people developing Alzheimer's, and the toll it takes not only on the patient, but the caregiver as well. It's just very difficult. Because many times with the Alzheimer's patient, one day they'll be somewhat lucid, and the next day they're not. And so you never know what to expect, and it really takes a toll on the caregiver. And when it reaches a point that it becomes the terminal condition, hospice can be there to support not only the patient with their needs with the Alzheimer's, but the caregiver as well. It gives them somebody that they can vent to and talk to, and not always lay that on family members, because that becomes quite a burden, because they're feeling it as well. It isn't just the immediate caregiver that feels the weight of it, the whole family does. And so to have a fresh person coming in and say, how are things going? How are you doing? What do you think we can do to help you get through that? Or maybe you need to see your doctor and explain what you're going through. Maybe there's something out there that can help you. And just to know that you've got somebody on your side can be very beneficial. And of course, it's not just for Alzheimer's, it's for any terminal condition that comes along, but I just thought it'd be good to bring it up with Darlene's talk about Alzheimer's right now. And, but that goes for any hospice. They're there to support you at that time. And ask questions. So many times when it's time for hospice, people are just overwhelmed. They don't even know what to ask. How do we go about this? What are we supposed to do? And, you know, I often would say, here's a notebook. You need a notebook. Write the question down as soon as you think of it, because kind of like you, Iris, 2 seconds later, it's going to be gone, you know? And if you write it down, you know, we can't be a paperless society because we need those reminders. And then ask them, you know, whenever the nurse, social worker, chaplain comes in, Serenity offers all three with every patient that comes on board. You have your choice whether you want the chaplain there, how often you want him. You know, in this community, which is Christian Catholic, people often say, I'd rather have my own pastor, my own minister. Well, sometimes they're very busy and they can't get there as often as you would like to have the spiritual support. So Serenity has the chaplain that will be there for you. Social worker is the same way. They're there once a week, once a month, whatever you need, but it's nice to have that emotional support during that time. Serenity offers nurses aides that can come in 3 days a week if you choose. It doesn't have to be that way. We want the family to have that choice in the matter if the patient is in the home. And the nurse, whether it's an RN or an LPN, can be there or is there 2 days a week, 1 day often overlapping with the aide. So they're available 24/7 on call, so you never have to feel that you're alone in dealing with this situation. And tonight I brought along Adele and Susie because they both bring a different perspective to the program. Adele has been a volunteer with us for
15 years.
15 years. Yeah. And I'll let her talk a little bit about the number of patients she's seen, what she does with them, and what she feels that being a volunteer means to her.
I can remember when Diane called me and said, my husband had died very suddenly and I had all this time and I wanted to do something to serve. So I prayed about it, and one day Diane calls me and says, did you ever think about being a hospice volunteer? And I thought, oh, not hospice. I hesitated, and she said, you could try it. If it's not what you're looking for, you don't have to stay with it. So I tried it, and I love it. In the 15 years I've been a volunteer, I've seen 51 patients. I've made great friends and met such neat families. And the volunteer has to be requested. You aren't assigned a volunteer. If you want somebody extra just coming in and visiting, you have to request it. And I always think the volunteer does the fun things. They don't have to make the patient take medicines. They don't have to give them a bath. We just go and do fun things. Some of the things I do with the patients, I had this one lady who was pitcher on a ball team in high school. And of course, she was in love with the Cardinals. So I'd go out there usually on Sundays and we'd watch the Cardinal game. Then some like to play bingo. And I'll watch on the activity calendar and I'll go out and we'll go to bingo. Some, if they aren't as alert, I'll just push them in the hall because they need to get out of those four walls rooms. Some of them I read to. I use the Chicken Soup for the Soul, little stories in there. Yes. But the one lady, she said, no, I want you to read the Bible. And she knew the book and everything, the chapter and everything she wanted me to read. A lot of them you just watch TV with. The ones that are sleeping most of the time, when I go in, I just hold their hand. I want them to know they're not alone, that somebody's there. And most of my patients are in the nursing homes, but if I have had some in private homes, and then when I go there, usually the caregiver will take a nap, maybe go grocery shopping, maybe just go out to lunch, because hospice really stresses that the caregivers need to take care of themselves and get some free time.
Right.
Yeah. And we're required to visit every 2 weeks, but I just fall in love with these people. I go every week. But I have the time, I'm a widow, and I have the time. After the volunteers' first basic training, we're based out of Park Hills, and that's where we get. Then every other month, we have a training session at the education room in the hospital. And we either have a video or a speaker, and then we discuss things, or if we're having a problem with anything. And our volunteer coordinator, Jenna, from Park Hills, is one of the neatest people, Christ-filled person that I've ever met. And it's just a pleasure working with them. But I always say the day I became a hospice volunteer was the best day of my life.
And one thing that I want to mention is, with the women in the community that do volunteer, they are required to follow the rules of HIPAA and privacy, just like the staff is. So, and you know how it is in a small town, you go in the grocery store and, somebody see you coming out of Mary Jane's house and you go, how is Mary Jane doing these days? And it's just like, you'll have to ask Mary Jane. That's not our position to tell anybody or share this private information. So I think that's important for the community to know that how their loved one is doing is not a topic of, coffee at McDonald's. Even as staff, I did not have the right, say, if John Doe was not my patient, to look in his chart. That was off limits for me. My patients, those were the ones that I could look at. I mean, this is, something that we took very seriously. And as I said, it applies to the volunteers as well because they're considered staff. Medicare requires 5% of our visits to come from volunteers. And in St. John, we learned that 7% of our visits were from the volunteers. That's how seriously they take their obligation. So, and we have, usually 8 to 10 volunteers at a time, just in this area. And Jenna from Park Hills comes over here to do our training. And then I call it the other side. The other side of 55 goes over to Mineral Area College, where the office is located for the training over there. And usually at Christmas, we all get together. And so it's a good time. But
And some of the volunteers do go to Perryville and Farmington.
right, yes. It just, it depends. When Richard Misplate was a volunteer with us, God love him,
Oh, yeah.
he would go, 50 miles. No problem, I love to drive, I'm going. Okay, Richard, thank you so much, so.
And just another thing, how much you love it. You retired and you're back.
I retired and I'm back just PRN, but it gets in your blood and I miss those people so bad. It's amazing what you see that people can do out of love. When the time comes and, the nurse can show them, this is a better way to bathe, this is how you change the bed with somebody in it, this is how you pull somebody up in bed, and you see that loved one step up and be able to do all these things. And it's just amazing. And caregiver gives so much of themselves that I learned so much from the families I met about caring for one another and love. I really missed that part of my life's education, so I had to get my toe back in a little bit. And I love being I go to the volunteer meetings all the time, as this group of people are just wonderful and give you a lot of good insight into what's necessary in life and carry on. And a lot of our volunteers know each other. They're practically related to one another. St. Genevieve, what do you expect?
Yeah, right.
And, they stick with it and they love it and they pull other volunteers in because they're such a good example. It's like, hey, they're having fun doing this. We can do it too. And like Adele said, I don't know if I could do hospice. And I said, can you go sit with somebody and talk to them? Yeah, well, that's all it is.
And when you walk in their room and their eyes light up, boy, that makes it, that really makes your day.
Feel like the king
But
of the world.
other than personal visits to the individual person, Serenity Hospice also does facials at the nursing homes, for everybody.
Right,
I
yeah.
know we have bingo, we have game day over at Parkwood Meadows. One Christmas we went Christmas caroling, and like for special days on Valentine's Day, we'll take a red rose to the ladies and the guys will get candy. And a lot of times we'll just bake cookies and just take them to them, and, yeah.
Just to let them know they're special, you know, especially in the nursing home. Some people have outlived everybody in their family, everybody they knew. And so for somebody to come in and say, hey, you know, I'd like to visit with you today, it's like, wow, this is pretty nice.
I have a question.
Sure.
A volunteer comes into you now. How much time are they required to put into this?
Whatever they want. I mean, you go in, and Adele can attest to this, sometimes, and 15 minutes is as long as you can
No, I
stay.
mean,
Training?
a day, yeah, no, not necessarily training, but a day a week, a month, 2-3 days a week, what, you
For
know?
each patient that you visit, like every other week,
one-
is one
okay,
visit
for each
every-
patient.
Yeah, and you may only have 1 or 2 patients that you're visiting at a time. And it depends, you know, I mean, if you've got good rapport, you may be in there more often.
And you can see when they're getting tired, and then that's usually
Okay,
when
That's your
no,
signal.
it's still
It depends what kind of a
what
day
I'm
they're having.
asking. What am I required? I come in as a volunteer, and you tell me that there's a person here. Okay, this is my person, and I spend the time that is best with them. And that's, say, for 2 or 3 hours in the morning.
Mhm.
Then can I go to another patient in the afternoon?
Sure. That you set your own schedule.
Okay, and how many days during the week am I required?
You aren't required. You're only required to see one patient every other week. So if
Okay.
you spend 15 minutes or 3 hours, that's your call.
Yeah.
And the patients, whatever they can tolerate and what they want, type of thing. So, and the other good part about being a volunteer is you can say, I don't have time right now. You know, my family's demanding this, I'm getting ready to go on vacation. You know, it wouldn't be fair to say, sure, I'll go visit them and then I'll be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I volunteer at other places, and I know sometimes you can't do that either. You're just,
You know, one time I
you
went to
don't want
visit one of my patients, and she was sitting in the dining room. And when I went up and started talking to her, she said, go away. I said, don't you remember, I'm your friend, and I'm going to come visit you often? And she looked around, and there was a lady sitting there, and her name was Armella. She said, go see Armella. I didn't know she had this thought process. So I looked over and I said, oh, Armella's asleep. And she looked over and she hollered, Armella! So I said, I'm going to go, but you want me to come back next week? She said, yes, come back next week. So sometimes they're not feeling well, you know, and they really don't.
Yeah.
And you can sense that after you've been there a while.
Oh, yeah.
But she was a sweetie.
You just kind of roll with the punches is the main thing, you know. And you know, if you think, okay, I'm due to see Nancy this week and I can't fit it in and she needs a visit, you call Jenna and say, somebody else needs to go visit Nancy for me this week. Somebody else goes visits Nancy this week. So as a volunteer, demands are minimal. Requests are made, but not demands. And
I was reading in the paper your different ads.
Mhm,
I said, uh-huh. That's
yeah.
why I'm asking questions.
Sure, sure. And I'm always available if anybody has questions or just wants to inquire about stuff.
Would you like to give a phone number, or?
Sure. It's local, 883-3035. And I can ask general questions about hospice, about volunteering. Serenity is a not-for-profit, freestanding. They will bill Medicare and your private insurance, so there's no out-of-pocket money from you for the services. But, you know, sometimes people need further information to help them make a decision, and I'm more than happy to provide that.
Okay, now there is no payment to the volunteer, not for fuel for the car or nothing?
No, no.
Okay, that's fine.
If you,
Want to
you know,
clear it.
if you want to just stay within the city limits, you say, this is where I want to be. If you say, I'll be glad to go to Perryville twice a month, but no more, that's fine. You know, I mean, if you want to hit a store down there while you're there and see the patients at the
Make a
same
day of it.
time, that's a good combination. You know, volunteer dictates what they're comfortable doing, and that's a limitation, you know. If you say, I've got 2 patients and I can't take any more, that's the way it is. Or if I need a 6-month break, you got a 6-month break.
I know it's a wonderful organization. I thank you for all that you did for me.
You're quite welcome.
It was wonderful. We got you.
I think about your dad often with the garden and our dove, you know. Just volunteered. Oh, I can make that. Blew me out of the water. So, yeah, we've been involved a number of times, haven't we?
It's still up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still.
Yeah, I designed that and he made it.
Jeez, yeah, talk about talent. Yeah, so.
Proud of it too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I was very, very proud of what the visits and the joy that you gave me
Oh, good.
and the support that I had during the time when I really needed it. Thank you.
And I think, you know, that's important for people to know. I mean, as staff, I can spout anything, and, you know, people say, she's an employee, but, you know, she doesn't know what it's like on the other end. Okay. Talk
You
to
were
you,
with me. You
and,
knew what it was like.
you know.
And I thank you for it.
You're quite welcome, quite welcome.
Years ago, it's been at least 20 or more, was when I first began to come in contact with hospice. I lived over in Phelps County, little bitty town that you sneezed and the highway passed us. And, a friend of mine there, her husband was very ill, and I believe he had cancer. I don't remember much now. But I remember she said, we have hospice coming in, and I knew that it was basically end times, you know, 2 or 3 months, 6
Sure,
months, whatever. And I said, well, you know, what do they do? Oh, she said, they let me go. And he would look forward. He'd tell her to go and get out of the house. He would sit and talk to his lady, you know, and it meant a lot.
Yeah, it
Yeah, a
does.
lot.
It's, yeah, to have that opportunity to leave the house. And I've told families sometimes, go out in the backyard. I mean, just have a little bit of separation can mean the world, that you can just take a breath and know that somebody else is there looking after
I
things.
know what that
And,
is.
It can make a real difference, so.
Well, questions?
Okay, Susie, you want to talk about your experience? with
Sure.
Your dad?
Well, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and we tried a few different treatment options, and nothing worked, really. That's the short version. And my dad's primary care physician, probably since he came to the community, was Dr. Bird, who also happens to be the medical director. Is that a correct title, Diane?
Yes.
For Serenity.
Exactly.
And just a caveat, my mom had volunteered for Serenity, so we were pretty familiar with Serenity. I actually went with my mom and dad to the appointment where we first started to talk to Dr. Bird about hospice. And that was much easier than I thought it would be. It was not a difficult conversation. I had gone into that appointment not having a great impression. I thought hospice meant you're dying and this is the end. We had several good months with my dad while he was on hospice. When he stopped taking the treatments and we started working with Serenity, he actually started feeling much better for a long time. Months. We got extra months with him, I think. I just can't say enough good things about our experience. And I know people have had great experiences with other companies, but working with Serenity was great for us. Jenna was wonderful. We actually did not have a volunteer for my dad. We have a pretty big family. A lot of folks are local. My mom was retired, so she, and Dad was able to be home, and that was huge for us. Mom and my sisters and I just did not want to spend any more time in hospitals. And with the help of Serenity, we were able to do that. His nurse was wonderful. For a couple months, my grandmother was also living with my mom and dad, and she was also on hospice for a time while she was there. So my mom had her hands full. And just knowing that the nurse would come in and help with both of them, the aides would come in primarily for my grandmother, it was a huge burden off of her. I still am in contact with my dad's nurse. She almost became part of the family. My sisters and I tried to be around a lot when she would come and visit, just because we all wanted to know what we could do and stay as informed about his condition and what he needed as we could. One of the other big things that was huge was the medications. I mean, just having all of that taken care of. The day that we decided it was time to get a hospital bed, our nurse Claudia made the phone call. It was there within an hour or two, and that was huge. That really helped my dad be a lot more comfortable. The week before he died, we had to take my mom to the ER, and she ended up getting admitted to the hospital. And just having the nurse's cell phone number and knowing Mary Kay and Jenna and everybody was just a phone call away, and if we needed something, if we had questions, we could ask so that my mom could get well again. That was pretty huge. So I went into the experience very hesitant and thinking it was really the end, and really we had a lot of extra time with my dad. Good time, quality time. And that was really huge for us. And Mom stopped volunteering while she was taking care of Dad, of course, and now she's back volunteering. And we have family dinners pretty often, and we're always hearing about her patients and their families. Of course, we don't know the names or anything, but she talks about, you know, her patient from Perryville or her patient in Farmington, and, you know, their kids are starting to call her Aunt Jean or whatever. So she gets really close to their families, and like Adele said, it's just, I don't know, it just seems like it's something that makes her feel really good. It's a great thing for her to do now that she's retired. She doesn't have grandbabies to take care of, so she's going and helping other people with their families. Yeah, we were, my sisters and I and my mom were really just so grateful for everything and how it was handled, and it was just, it just took a huge burden off of us. And was it November was hospice month, is that right? Yes. So if you know my family, you know we cook and bake and we know food, so we asked if we could bring some food in for a meeting, for a Serenity staff meeting. And so I finally got to meet all these people that I had heard about or talked to on the phone, and we took a big breakfast buffet over. My younger sister's much more well-spoken than me, so she made a little speech, and we fed the staff, and it was just really nice to show our appreciation in a very small way.
Well, I was going to have hospice with my husband, but the doctor came and told him, he had quite a bit of cancer and bad heart and a whole bit, you know, and that he only had maybe 2-3 weeks to live, and he was in ICU at the time. Mm-hmm. So the doctor said, he said, can I go home to die, you know? And the doctor said, yeah, we can get hospice for you. And they came, then he told me, he said, you go home and wait for the bed. So I went home, and that guy, he was right there with that bed, nice mattress and all. And Ernie died the next morning. Mm-hmm. But he knew he was going to get to come home. That's so. Right.
Yeah, my dad they had given him maybe a month, and my husband, or my now husband, we were engaged. We moved up our wedding, instead of July, we got married in mid-March, because we really wanted him to be there, and he made it till July. He was almost there for our what would have been our wedding, but he just had so much extra time, and he was at home and he was comfortable, and I don't know that we could have done that without hospice.
Well, and the other thing is the pain control. You can't do that on your own unless you have a nurse in there. And the medication gets delivered, so you don't have to be running out to get it. And one nice thing, if you've ever called a doctor's office and you get the recording and it says, we'll be back in touch with you by the end of business day, and it's like, that's not going to work for me. Well, the hospice nurses can get through, and they can get through to the doctor or his assistant and say, we need an increase in this medicine, and it happens. It's not this, well, we'll get back to you at our convenience. No, when they hear hospice, they jump at it because they know it's necessary right then and there. And, and that one other thing with hospice, there's no pay for the equipment that comes in or the medication related to the diagnosis. That is covered by the insurance or Medicare. So, because usually by the time somebody comes to the hospice, they've incurred so much debt or paid out so much for treatment and hospital runs and this and that, that to hear that something is going to be covered is quite a blessing. So,
And that brings up another question too. Now, if a person comes in, now this wouldn't have been now because you really have to have insurance, but back before these laws were in, and all they had was Medicare. No other insurance or nothing. Now, how do they handle that? I know Medicare does not pay at all.
right. It depends on the hospice. Serenity is a not-for-profit, and even if somebody falls between the cracks and has no insurance, they are still covered. So you've seen sometimes at the funeral homes where they'll have the memorial envelopes. That helps defray some of that. What Medicare does is they pay a daily rate. And so the business office has to figure out how to handle this with the cost of equipment, medications, staff, wages, all of that out of that money. On rare occasions, there is sometimes some left over. So that goes for somebody that can't afford to pay with insurance. Not every hospice will do this.
Okay. So there are some profitable hospices.
There are many for-profit hospices, yes. For the most part, they are for-profit. This is the 30-year anniversary for Serenity.
Is it really?
Is it really?
It had been called Hospice Care Incorporated, and then they kind of decided that was kind of a generic name. And so it was several years ago that they adopted the name Serenity, but it's always been independent, not-for-profit, and always at Mineral Area College. Started off in one little office, barely bigger than the judge's desk up there, and with desks all around. And if you got up, you lost your spot. There were too many, it was like, a musical desk. If you got up, you lost it and somebody else got it. Then we thought it was wonderful. We went to 2 offices. Wow, we've got all this room. A couple years later, that was not big enough. Then at Mineral Area, they had a daycare section that they were no longer using. We got that, and we thought, we are set for life. That didn't work either. And at that time, our executive director had been watching his pennies closely, and they were able to build our own building. So, and still, there are times that offices can be shared or whatever, but, there's their own space right now. Right as you enter the campus at Mineral Area, right next to the Highway Patrol's office is Serenity's office. So, yeah, expanded over the years, and when people in St. John County were looking for a hospice agency to bring in, and they interviewed different agencies, Serenity or Hospice Care Inc. at that time was the one that was invited in. basically because of the spiritual component to the program. So, it's been around a long time, and we hope it continues for a long time to come. Want to leave some time for Ally.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time.
So,
I have a question about hospice. How does someone qualify, like a patient qualify for hospice?
okay, terminal illness, and the doctor decides if things go as expected. Life expectancy would be 6 months or less.
Okay.
No longer seeking life-prolonging treatments.
Okay.
And, basically that's it, not seeking the treatment anymore, no more chemo,
If a doctor says, well, this patient is, 6 months or whatever, how often do you see the patients, once they get on hospice, they go past 6 months?
They recertify on a regular basis, and they have to determine, if they're still appropriate. There's some people who might have a disease that stabilizes, and so they say, oh, I graduated from hospice. But when their symptoms come back and they worsen, they can come back on.
Okay.
So they still have to meet the requirements of, deteriorating. That's one thing that we have to definitely look at, I mean, we can be really happy when somebody has a very good day, but it's not something that we want to say is an ongoing thing, because that goes against hospice. I mean, somebody can look great and wonderful, and their body can still be deteriorating,
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, we've had patients on for years, and we try to get referrals early in the decline, so that the patient and the nurse build a rapport, just like your dad did. When there's only a couple of weeks, it's just too acute to really be able to build any type of relationship there, and you want them to be able to have that time either to go on a special trip, or we've had social worker took somebody fishing, and just, is there something you still want to do? And somebody will say, I was bound and determined I was going to get to Florida with my grandkids. Well, let's see if we can work that out.
Yeah.
So
That's neat.
we definitely work for the patient's benefit in more ways than just medical.
My dad thought he'd never golf again, and he was out there for months. It was great.
Good.
Yeah, it was really amazing.
Yeah. They kind of feel like themselves.
Yeah.
They get away from feeling like a patient.
Yeah.
Because that really makes you feel like a victim.
Yeah,
that you
and
have
if you
no
can be at
control.
home,
Yes.
it
Oh my
makes a
gosh.
huge difference.
Sure.
Just
Yes.
not spending so much time in the hospital and,
Oh, yeah.
and still managing your pain.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That was a big part of it.
Yeah, because hospitals are wonderful for certain things, but often pain management is not one of them.
Yeah.
And that's a specialty of the hospice program,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you guys for coming in. I'm sure you touched a lot of people out there.
They've touched us as well,
Yeah.
definitely.
And a lot of people aren't educated, like what Darlene is up to and what Serenity's up to. I mean, I think this program's good for that. If
Spread the word.
I think the older people listen. I don't know about younger people, but I know many older people do, because they tell us all the time. I told you last night.
And you're not going to look into a situation unless you need it.
Right.
Nobody's going to look and read up all about hospice when it's not a factor in their lives.
Right.
So
But it's nice for them to know that it's available.
It's
When
available.
and if they need it,
yes.
And it's wonderful.
And what it does for them, definitely. I appreciate being here, thank you.
Yeah, that's what makes this show so interesting, because we get such good guests. So we really pour out the information.
We have the best.
Yeah. Now, we heard all about the doggies last week.
Yeah. Last show, yeah.
Our last show, we had 3 guests that were all involved with animals.
Oh, how neat.
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah.
It's fun.
And so tonight, it's health.
Yeah.
Basically, even alleys,
Oh, definitely, yes.
definitely alleys,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
So, I have two things that are kind of happen at the same time on Friday. It's a book signing for my new book, and then also a show together down at Bill Nager's place, Merchant Street Gallery, which is next to the post office. And the book is called Modern Fresco Paintings, and it's an 11-year retrospective of my work. So from
And it's
2007.
It's beautiful.
Bill showed it to me. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank
The
you.
book
Yeah.
itself is an art. I mean, it's a piece of art
Thank you.
and the
itself.
story, I found.
Thank you. Yeah, it has an essay in that I
Right.
wrote about the story of my art. And then there's an essay by a writer in New York that writes a lot of art, on art and stuff. And so he did the foreword in there. And there's a chapter in the book on Millie, which a lot of people might know. And that's why we put a show together. We were going to do the book signing. And then we started thinking, wait a minute, it's been this month, almost to the day, it was 10 years ago I did the Millie paintings. It's been 10 years. It's been 10 years, and that's really hard to believe. Because it was the show open at Bill's place on the card. It said April 24th, 2009. And so we're going to have this anniversary show here on Friday, which will be the 26th of 2019. I mean, I just kept having to go over that. How could that be 10 years?
So today is actually the 10th year anniversary.
Yeah, oh, yeah, just 2 days past, yeah. And so what I decided for a show, when I was thinking, because I've got a lot of work. I have a museum show that's been traveling, and so I have enough paintings to fill a huge space, but I thought, what do I want to select for this show? And I thought, well, what would be cool is if we could get all the Millie paintings I've done. Now, the original 2009 show had 15 paintings, and all of those sold. 4 of those paintings are in St. Genevieve. One is at St. Gem. Jan and Kathy own that one, and then there's one by the Gruslings, that they have one, Kathy and Wayne Grusling. And then Millie has one, and Bill and Patty have one. So we have those 4 on loan for the show. And then I've painted Millie a lot since then. So I have several paintings of her. We have 20 paintings total down there. 4 that are from that original 2009 show, but then I have 3 paintings of Ollie, Patty, who's Millie's mom, her granddaughter, Allison. She's on the cover of the book.
Yes.
And I've done some paintings of her, so there's, I think, 3 or 4 paintings of her. So it's, I was just thinking more of like an inner circle. We moved to St. Genevieve in 2007, and that's when I saw the coffee can collection. It was before GoFundMe and all that stuff, and there was the coffee can at the gas station, at the grocery store, and this little coffee can for Millie Nager. And her face just struck me as a portrait artist. She had a compelling presence, and then it was maybe in 2008 sometime when I saw her at Mass, and my daughter said, "That's Millie." And when I went to get communion, and I walked back around, and how the light, sometimes the sun comes through the stained glass windows. It was like coming through like this on Millie, and she was just illuminating, and I thought, I have to paint her. The bandanas, the earrings, all the geometric patterns, the color, and then so it took me I think I wrote Patty a letter. I thought, I don't know these people, but I'm just going to write her mom, because that would be safe right there. I'm not going to approach Millie. And then I didn't hear from them for months passed. And then it was during Art Walk. We were at one of the places, I think the Mammy Shaw House or something, or one of those things.
Oh, the promenade.
Yeah, and that's when I introduced myself, and I said, does Millie want to be painted? And they said, oh yeah, she does. We just haven't gotten back to you or whatever. So then we set it up, and I painted her, and the rest is history. But in that, now Bill and Patty are some of my best friends and our closest friends, and so it's in their circle. I've been so inspired by their children, and so anyway, the show is during the Fourth Friday Art Walk. I will have books there for sale. If you have already got a book and you want me to sign it, I'll be there signing the books. So
Lisa will be there.
yeah.
Oh, maybe not. She has to be
Yeah.
to Kansas City for a show.
I know, some people can't, and there's a dinner going on down at
Yeah,
the
the
Debord.
chamber.
The
Yeah.
chamber thing.
Yes.
But you'll be there early, right?
I'll be there at 5:30.
Okay,
But
I'll
then
see you at
someone
5:30.
told me that you guys can slip out and slip back in, and, it's more cat, so maybe if you're going to the chamber dinner, maybe you could sneak down and.
Dinner's not till 7:30. There's plenty
Okay,
of
there you
time.
go, there you go.
Skip the art walk's almost over.
Yeah.
Yeah, the show will not be up for long, I don't know, maybe a week or so.
Oh, is that
Some
how
of the
it
pieces
goes?
are already being shipped to, the ones that are on loan will immediately go back to the collections, because we don't, and then I have some that are have made it into some watercolor shows, like ones in international watercolor shows. I've got to get those shipped out, so,
If
see it while you can.
If I bring Lisa's book down, then
Oh, yeah.
you'll know me and
And she
sign
might
it
be
for
a-
her.
Maybe, yeah.
Huh?
Oh, she might come to book club, bring it to book club. I see her at book club once a month, too.
Yeah, I don't know, I shouldn't take it this past week or so, wasn't it?
No,
it's
it's
the
next
first-
week,
it's next
yeah.
week.
So we've asked Ally to sign our books. Anybody who
Yeah.
can't make it Friday, we get a private signing.
You know Lisa also?
Yeah, I'm in the book club with your daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. She's,
So she gets a private signing.
yeah. She's a sweetheart. She's really sweet.
Yeah.
So you want to tell a little bit about your life?
Yeah. Where you from?
What inspired
How'd
you?
you get
and-
here?
Yeah, where are you from and how'd you get here?
Okay.
That's what you just said.
I was born in St. Louis, and I graduated. I lived in Arnold. I lived at Barnhart. Eventually went to middle school and high school in DeSoto. Graduated from DeSoto High School. I went to art school in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I also studied a semester in New York City in a residency. I graduated from art school in '95. And we lived in Grand Rapids until 2001, and that's when we moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that's when I wanted to get my art, off the ground. I really wanted to, get gallery representation, get it to a professional level. And in Grand Rapids, there was an art school, so there was this abundance of artists, but people weren't really going to Grand Rapids to collect art, so it wasn't really working, to sell work there. And this is before the internet took off to where you could sell, stuff through the internet. So anyway, we went to Santa Fe, and that's where I developed the water. I was working on oils when I went to Santa Fe, when we moved there in 2001. And then it wasn't until kind of this happenstance, which you'll have to buy the book because the story's in there, that I started painting on watercolor paper. I did a watercolor, and then that sort of grew into a bigger demand for my work, but it needed to be on another surface than paper because paper has to be behind glass, and work behind glass wasn't selling at the time, and galleries didn't want to, they liked the work, they would represent it, just not behind glass. So that's where I developed the modern fresco paintings, and did a lot of research. That story is in the book. And then I once I developed these watercolor paintings on the modern frescoes, then it kind of took off, and that was in 2007. I got a really good gallery in Santa Fe, and I had a gallery in Memphis, and I had a gallery in Austin. It just started getting in magazines and internet, and that was about the time that I moved to St. Genevieve in 2007, right when things started taking off. And we wanted to move back to the Midwest for lots of reasons, but to be closer to family. All my family's still in the area, and so I just worked and worked and worked, and now, it just kind of snowballed. a few years ago, I started pulling out of the galleries and just leaning more on Instagram and Facebook for my sales, and doing, certain, like I did some art fairs, and just kind of a little more creative with how I market myself and all that. So,
Are you back in galleries now?
no,
No,
not really.
not really.
I will do group shows sometimes, an invitational group. They're having a group show, and they'll invite a bunch of artists to do a show. I'll do stuff like that if it works for me. But
Well, there's nothing like social media. I mean,
social
you
media has
go
really
everywhere.
changed things. Yeah, it really has changed things. And then it was about 2 years ago that the publishing company contacted me and said, we really like your art, and would you, be interested in doing an art book? We do art books. They do lots of really cookbooks. They do some really interesting, really beautiful books. But I remember I was reading the email, and you get these emails like all the time. It's kind of like, you know what I mean?
Are you
You know what I'm
serious or
talking about,
not?
Iris. And this one was like, and he's like, you should really read this very carefully and take this very seriously. It's like, this is really what you think, and it was kind of that sort of thing. And so, I talked to the guy, the publisher, and I thought, yeah, it's cool.
What was that process like for you? How much input did you have into the book?
A lot. Because it's a retrospective of like all my work from 2007 until now, I done close to like about 600 paintings in that time period, and the book has 224 paintings. So we had to go through like each year and kind of distill it down to what really are the best paintings to put in and what represents would be for each time period, and then working with the designer and how it's going to be laid out, and then even how the book flows. We want to start out. We start out the book with the favorites, and so if you open the book and you're going to see kind of the best, right there, and then chronological, and then that one painting that you've seen with the oil painting, that was kind of the, going there. There's at one point where we start the chronological, part of the book, that we go back to a painting that I did of my daughter when I was 6 weeks pregnant with her. And it was a visionary portrait. I could see her like at, I was 6 weeks pregnant, but I could see her as like a 7-year-old in my head, and so I painted that. And then when she was 17, I did another portrait of her. And so I have side by side this visionary portrait with this portrait of her as a young woman, and how similar, eerily similar, that it turned out that she looked like that vision that I had of her. So.
That's good. And how many magazine covers and stuff, have you kept track of them? Or?
I've kind of lost track.
It seems like every time you turn around, Allie was.
I know, there's so many good things happening.
Magazine cover.
Sometimes, like this one article that was done, someone sent it to me, and they never even got my approval or anything. I mean, a lot of the stuff was right, but some of the information was kind of off. And, hey.
That's not legal for them to do that. You could
probably not. It's international.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff, it's like,
so
hey, at least
it's promoting Allie.
It's
That's
good,
Yes.
it's fine. It's getting my name out there and people see my work. I guess that's what's important. They see the work and they, if someone shares my work and they don't ask my permission, I'm fine with it.
Now, who was the, I forgot, the singer that had one of your paintings on the wall? You remember?
Cher?
No.
Yes.
Was it Cher?
Yeah, Cher had 3 of my paintings. Is it over? Is the show over? Can I tell that story?
Sure. No, you can tell it. We
Okay.
got till 8:30. Yeah.
Well, my dad called me. It was like, 2008 maybe. My dad calls me on the phone, and it's early in the morning, like 8 or 9 o'clock. He's like, I was just opened up my internet, and I see an article pop up that says, Cher's house in Hawaii sells for, $10 million, whatever. So he's like, he loves Cher. So he's like, I click on it. He's like, I want to see how Cher's living, right? So he's like going through the pictures, and he's like, someone is ripping you off, okay? Because there are some paintings on her wall that look just like yours. Someone is ripping. You got to look at this. Someone's ripping you off. So I open it up, like, send me the link. I go to it. Oh, Dad, those are my paintings. Those are my paintings. 3 of my paintings. So, and she bought them from the Santa Fe Gallery. Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah, I remember
That was
when
pretty
you
cool.
posted that. That was
Yeah.
so neat, yeah. Surprise, surprise.
That was a nice surprise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah. And how many hours a day do you work?
Well, not as much as I used to. I mean, I'm working like nonstop. I'm working harder now than I ever have worked, but I'm not making art. I'm doing, 3 hours a day. You know, I used to paint 10 to 12 hours a day
Oh, my God.
because I was having to paint, make 60 to 70 paintings a year because I had so many galleries and they all needed paintings,
Oh, right.
so you make the paintings, you ship them out, and it's, it was kind of like crazy. But whenever I got pregnant with Malachi in 2009, I thought, I'm going to be having a baby, and I'm not going to be able to work all these hours, so I'm going to cut it down to 4 hours. So at that point in time, I stopped. I cut back on what I could do in 4 hours a day, and then 2 years later had Saoirse. Then it's like, here I'm 40 and I have 2 little kids and a full career. I mean, it was like, we have 17 years between our oldest and our youngest. So the first one, then we had 8 years, and then another one, then we had 8 years, and another one. So it's very, and then I get 2 right back to back. So it's like, I'm too old for this. But now I feel like, gosh, I sit down and I think I've gotten to the point where I actually need to hire someone, with the correspondence. The correspondence and the emails and the messages, and I just, it could take hours.
Yeah.
Just hours to do all that and then get to the painting. But now, I don't have all the galleries, and so I can do the more paintings that I want to do. And I can, just relax a little bit more, and I do commissions, a lot of portrait commissions. So,
And you have lots of fun with your family.
yes, right, yeah,
That's important.
yeah.
And Neve gets prettier all the time. She is so beautiful.
Thank you.
She is.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
your
she's my,
kids are cute.
well, yeah, Neve she's my oldest daughter, and, she's in the book a lot. She was really the one that was my muse all along. And then the other kids, are like, why don't you paint boys? Do you hear that? People ask me that a lot. Why don't you paint boys? And, I was painting Neve, and we were just on a roll. And then Finn came along in 2003, and he doesn't like his picture to be taken. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He's just like, no. And then, then by the time Malachi comes along, I have got paintings to do. I'm on a different track than like painting a newborn. So it's kind of like, Neve has been my main muse, and she's in a lot, and her friends, it's kind of like always, I always just meet these little inner circles, my daughter and her friends, and those become people that I paint, or, Bill and Patty, and then their inner circle, and people say, oh, where do you find your models? They're so beautiful. It's like, these are just people that I know and that I become close to.
And when you were doing the baby paintings or the watery paintings, I always say her name wrong. Saoirse?
Saoirse?
Saoirse.
Oh, yeah, the Immerse paintings in
Marsha,
2015,
when
right.
she said, so many, what did she
Oh.
say, so many babies?
No, she said, it's on the back cover of my book. If you've gotten the book, on the back, you see the big baby paintings, and she was 2 at the time. And so Neve, and the story's in the book, but Neve went to college, and there was just a big kind of shift in my work, a new chapter, and so I went from painting Neve to painting Saoirse, my little baby. This is in 2015, and she was 2 at the time. And I had all these paintings were getting ready to go to an art fair in New York. And I was getting ready to box them up and everything. I thought, oh, shoot, let me line them up in my studio. I kind of stood them all up. And then I put Saoirse in the middle of the room, and I said, I got to get a picture of you with these paintings. And it wasn't even that great of a photo, it was just my cell phone. But she was just walking around, just looking at them. She said, "Look at all the tummies." There's a tummy, there's a tummy.
I knew she said, look at something, but I couldn't remember what it was.
And now she's 7, and she says, "Mom, why did you paint me in my underwear?" It's so funny. She loved it when she was a baby. Now she's just, what? We did this?
So, anybody got any more questions to anyone?
Any more answers to questions we haven't asked? Mouses or anything?
I just
Okay, Darlene, you want to tell what time and all about your races?
Okay, to refresh your memory, our mouse races will be at the American Legion Hall on May the 3rd. The doors open at 6, the race is at 7, and it'll be a fun evening, and all the proceeds go to the to the Alzheimer's Association, and they do stay with the Greater Missouri chapter. So they just come out and support us. It's a fun night, and you will have a good time.
And to get in,
It's $25.
$25 to get in.
$25
That's
to
your
get
dinner. There is a cash bar, but you'll get your money's worth. And maybe you'll win some money if you get a lucky mouse. It's fun. You are amazed to see how excited the people will get over a mouse.
I bet. Like, hurry.
When I first heard them, I thought, who's going to go and get excited about seeing a mouse run? But they really do. Because you'll be rooting for a mouse and he'll be out in the front, and all at once he'll turn around and go the other way, and So it's fun, yeah. And all our functions are fun, and like I said, I'm just adamant about it because I lost my husband 15 years ago to vascular dementia, which is one under the umbrella of Alzheimer's. So that's why I'm adamant about it, and I'm going to stay with it as long as I can, as long as I get help. Can't do it by myself anymore. So that's.
And your Serenity, and what's your number? And
Well, I did want to mention when Ollie mentioned social media, Serenity is on Facebook, Serenity Hospice Care, so you can go on there and get information if that's an easier way for you to do it. Their phone number is 573-431-0162, and you can always call and get information without feeling that you're obligated to follow through and do this or that or the other thing, or just ask questions. Our new executive director was promoted from within, so she has 13 years of hospice experience, so she is well-grounded in her knowledge, and so we're real happy to have her. But anyway, just thought about the social media contact that people can reach out there.
you want to repeat your show times and stuff, Alan?
It's this Friday for the Art Walk, which goes from 6 to 9 at Bill Nager's place, which is down on Merchant Street next to the post office.
Across from Sarah's.
Yes, right across from Sarah. Come to the show, get some ice cream, go get a drink at Audubon.
You can just
Then go up
make
to
the
the chamber
round.
banquet. Make the rounds.
Okay, well, thanks to everyone for coming on the show.
So thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for inviting us.
Anytime you have something to advertise or want to talk about, you need to come back again and talk about the Serenity Gardens. Is that the pamphlet that you gave me at
Oh, that's right.
Garden.
At Mineral Area.
Right.
Yeah. We also have the the hospital takes care of it now, at the end of the parking lot at the hospital. That's the one, the Dove, where the Dove is.
Oh, yes.
And years ago, it started out, we have individual bricks that you can engrave a name on. And it was a fountain, okay? The only thing is, that the fountain blew the circuit breaker every time. We've never quite figured out how to fix that, so we just kind of ignore it. But there are seats there, and it's just a nice, quiet spot. There's a nice little tree. And the front parking lot at the hospital way at the far end.
I'll have to
Oh,
drive
yeah,
by
I've seen
and
it.
see.
I've seen it.
Yeah, when you go up the upper end.
So,
The one in Allen, Bliss Cancer Center, I saw that one a lot.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
sure,
That one's
sure.
really pretty too.
Yeah. This isn't so much of a garden, it's just kind of a peaceful little place to go.
It's nice.
And with the names on the bricks and stuff.
Oh,
so,
okay. Okay, so thanks to everyone for coming. And
Thank you.
when we come back, we're always looking for people to come and talk. If you just want to come and talk, just come and talk.
Come and talk. Kind of a round table discussion or an oval table discussion, that works quite well. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Tell Charlie goodbye. Goodbye, Charlie.
She is teaching in China.
Was she in
Say good
Singapore?
night.